Eastern Front, Soviet Union. October 1943. Evening. Major Erich Hartmann walks across the flight line at his squadron's forward airfield. His boots crunch on gravel. The smell of aviation fuel hangs in the cold air. Around him, mechanics work on Messerschmitt 109s, patching bullet holes, replacing engines, loading ammunition. He counts the aircraft. 6. 3 months ago, this squadron had 18 fighters, 18 pilots, 18 young men who laughed in the mess hall, played cards, wrote letters home. Now 6 aircraft, 6 pilots, 12 empty spaces on the flight line. Hartmann stops at his own aircraft, Kursk 1, black nose marking. The mechanics have painted 12 small black bars on the fuselage, one for each lost pilot. A tally of ghosts. Hartmann is 21 years old. He has 90 confirmed aerial victories. Not a scratch on him. Never wounded, never even grazed by enemy fire. The 12 men whose spaces now sit empty, most died on their first mission. Some made it to their second. A few survived a week. One burned to death after being shot down over Soviet lines. Another was killed when his engine quit on takeoff. Mechanical failure, not enemy action. A third bailed out successfully and was shot in his parachute by a Soviet fighter pilot who didn't believe in mercy. 2 simply vanished. No radio call, no crash site, no body. Just gone. 5 of them died on the same day. Hartmann runs his hand along Kursk 1's fuselage. The metal is cold. The aircraft is undamaged. Ready for tomorrow's missions. He thinks about the mathematics of survival. In 3 months, 12 pilots dead. Him 90 victories, and untouched. What separated the world's greatest ace from the ghosts who flew beside him? The answer wasn't luck. It wasn't skill. It wasn't courage. It was a system. A 4-step tactical sequence born from watching everyone around him die, and the absolute iron-willed discipline to never deviate from it. Not once. Not ever. Even when every instinct screamed at him to do otherwise. JG-52 Squadron, Area Eastern Front. October 1942. Erich Hartmann is 20 years old. Fresh from flight school. Barely 100 hours in the Messerschmitt 109. His uniform still looks new. His Knight's Cross isn't there yet. He hasn't earned it. He won't earn it for another year. He stands beside his assigned aircraft, watching the veterans prepare for the day's first mission. They move with casual efficiency, strapping into cockpits, starting engines, taxiing to the runway as casually as men driving to work. Hartmann is assigned as wingman to a flight leader whose name history didn't record. This nameless pilot will teach Hartmann the first and most important lesson: how not to die. They take off at dawn. 4 Messerschmitts climbing into the gray October sky. Hartmann struggles to hold formation. The Me-109 is sensitive, twitchy. Nothing like the trainers he flew in flight school. His hands are sweating inside his leather gloves. His heart pounds. Bandits. 2 o'clock low. The radio crackles. Hartmann looks right. There. Soviet Il-2 Sturmovik ground attack aircraft. Heavily armored. Flying low over German positions, strafing with cannon and rockets. The flight leader rolls and dives. Hartmann follows. What happens next takes 11 seconds. The lead Me-109 attacks the Il-2 from behind and above. Textbook approach. Gun camera rolling. Tracer fire streaming into the Soviet aircraft. Hits sparking off the Il-2's armored rear. The Sturmovik keeps flying. Its armor is thick, designed to absorb punishment. The German pilot closes range. Keeps firing. More hits. Finally, the Il-2's engine trails smoke. It starts to go down. The German pilot stays on target. Still firing. Making sure of the kill. Then the Il-2 explodes. Not a fire. Not a gradual disintegration. An explosion. The fuel tanks detonate. The aircraft tears apart in mid-air. Flaming debris erupts outward in every direction. The German Me-109 flies directly into the debris field. Metal fragments puncture the fighter's thin aluminum skin. Something, a piece of engine, a chunk of wing, Hartmann can't tell, slams into the Me-109's radiator. Coolant sprays. The engine temperature gauge climbs. Red line. Past red line. The engine seizes. Silence. The propeller windmills uselessly. The Me-109 becomes a glider. Hartmann watches his flight leader struggle with a dead aircraft. Watches him search for a place to put down. There. A field. Not smooth. Rough terrain. Shell craters. But better than nothing. The Me-109 drops. Bounces hard. The landing gear collapses. The fighter slides across the field in a shower of sparks and torn metal, finally coming to rest in a twisted heap. The pilot climbs out. Unhurt. But the aircraft is destroyed. All because he pressed the attack 5 seconds too long. Hartmann's own mission isn't over. He follows the remaining aircraft back to base, his mind racing. The lesson was clear. Get in close. Fire. Get out immediately. Don't watch your kill go down. Don't admire your work. Strike and break. Always break. Press the attack too long and the debris will kill you. 2 weeks later. Same airfield. Hartmann flies his first combat mission as primary attacker. Not wingman. Leader of his element. He spots a Soviet Il-2. Same type that created the debris field that destroyed his previous flight leader's aircraft. Hartmann dives. Closes range. The Il-2 grows larger in his windscreen. His finger tightens on the trigger. Hez about to fire when he panics. Not fear of the enemy. Fear of getting too close. Fear of the debris. Fear of that explosion he watched 2 weeks ago. He fires from too far out. 300 yards. Long range. His bullets streak toward the Il-2. Some hit. Most miss. The Soviet aircraft is damaged but not destroyed. It keeps flying, trailing smoke. Hartmann presses the attack. Closes range. Fires again. More hits. The Il-2 is staggering, now losing altitude. Then it explodes. Just like before. Massive detonation. Debris everywhere. Hartmann is ready this time. He pulls up hard. 6 Gs. 7. The G-forces crush him into his seat. Gray creeps in at the edges of his vision. But Hez not ready enough. A piece of debris, he never sees what it is, punches through his left wing. Not a critical hit. Not a kill. But enough. His aircraft starts vibrating. The damaged wing creates drag. He loses speed. Loses altitude. The engine is fine. The controls still work. But the aircraft won't maintain level flight. Hez going down. Hartmann looks for a place to land. There. Another field. He brings the Me-109 in wheels down as smooth as he can manage with a damaged wing. The wheels touch. The aircraft rolls. Slows. Stops. He sits in the cockpit, breathing hard, hands shaking. His first victory. His first forced landing. And his first real lesson. Head broken away, yes. But not fast enough. Not decisively enough. The attack was successful. The aircraft was destroyed. But Head nearly died in the process. In the hospital, they kept him overnight for observation, worried about internal injuries from the hard G-forces. Hartmann had time to think. The lesson from 2 weeks ago. Get in close before firing. The lesson from today. Break away immediately after firing. But those 2 lessons created a problem. How do you get in close and break away fast? The closer you are when you fire, the less time you have to break before hitting debris. The answer, he realized, wasn't in the attack itself. It was in everything that came before the attack. 6 months later. Spring, 1943. Hartmann has 5 confirmed victories. He wears the Iron Cross second class now. Still young, Still learning. Still making mistakes. But Hes alive. More importantly, Hes been flying with different element leaders. Each one teaches him something, usually by demonstrating what not to do. Lieutenant Paul Rosman, long-range sharpshooter. Elegant surprise attacks from distance. Opens fire at 400 yards, hits with devastating accuracy, breaks away before the enemy even knows Hes there. Hartmann flies, as Rosman's wingman, for a month. Learns patience. Learns positioning. Learns that the pilot who sees first already has half the victory. But he also sees Rosman's weakness. From 400 yards even, accurate fire isn't devastating. Aircraft are damaged, not destroyed. Enemies limp home. Rosman gets probables and damaged credits instead of confirmed kills. Sergeant Hans Dammer's Knight's Cross winner, August 1942. 30 years old. Ancient by Squadron standards. A muscle flyer. Hard-turning aggressive dogfighter who can physically wear down opponents through sheer endurance. Hartmann flies as Dammer's wingman and learns the cost of dogfighting. In a turning battle, you lose your overview. You can't see what's happening around you. You're focused on one enemy while 3 others get into position to shoot you down. Keeping Dammer's tail clear becomes Hartmann's full-time job. He can't shoot, can't maneuver, can only watch and warn while Dammer's twists and turns with enemy aircraft. They survive. Dammer's gets his kills. But it's inefficient, dangerous, and exhausting. Alfred Grislovsky Knight's Cross winner. More analytical than Dammer's. A thinker, he teaches Hartmann about the Il-2 Sturmovic's vulnerable oil cooler located underneath the aircraft. Attack from below. Aim for the belly. Avoid the armored rear. From Grislovsky, Hartmann learns that knowing your enemy's weaknesses matters more than raw flying skill. Josef Zverneman, 26 years old. 60 victories. 50-50 muscle and head flyer. Athletic, but thoughtful. Hes the one who really hammers home the lesson about closing range. Hartmann watches Zverneman attack a Soviet La-5 fighter. Zverneman closes to point-blank range. So close Hartmann thinks Hes going to collide. Then a 1-second burst. The La-5 disintegrates. After landing, Hartmann asks, "How close were you?" Zverneman grins. Close enough to smell his engine oil. From Zverneman, Hartmann learns that at 50 yards the Mi-109's weapons, one 20mm cannon and 2 7.92mm machine guns, create a cone of fire so dense that nothing survives. No need for long bursts, no need for prolonged attacks. 1 second, one concentrated blast, then break away. By spring 1943, Hartmann has synthesized everything Hes learned, from Rosman patience and positioning. See, first, set up the perfect attack. From Dammer's, what not to do. Avoid dogfights. Don't turn with the enemy. From Grislovsky. Know the enemy's weaknesses. Study your targets. From Zverneman, close range. Devastating firepower. 1-second bursts. But it's the pilot who becomes his regular element leader, the man who gives him his nickname, who helps Hartmann turn these lessons into a system. May 1943, Walter Graf Punsky Krupinski, Count Punsky, debonair ladies' man, Squadron's social lion, builder of bars wherever the unit is stationed, charmer of every eligible German girl within 30 miles. In peacetime, he could have been a movie star. In war, Hes all guts and claws. But Krupinski has a weakness: he can't shoot. He gets into perfect position, closes to ideal range, pulls the trigger, and misses. Not by much, but in aerial combat, a miss is a miss. Hartmann, meanwhile, is a natural marksman, always has been. In training, he riddled his first drogue target. Every qualification test top scores. Krupinski closes range. Hartmann delivers the killing blow. Very perfect partners. The partnership creates a new tactic. Krupinski attacks. Hartmann stays on the perch, higher altitude, watching Krupinski's back, calling out threats. When Krupinski breaks away, Hartmann rolls in for the kill shot. When Hartmann attacks, the roles reverse. Krupinski watches, calls instructions. "Hey booby, get in closer. You're opening fire too far out." The voice becomes constant. Every mission, every attack. "Hey booby, get in closer." The nickname sticks. Booby, baby. The whole squadron starts calling him that. Hes 20 years old with a baby face and a growing reputation. And under Krupinski's constant coaching, Hartmann's kill tally begins to climb. 5 victories becomes 10. 10 becomes 20. 20 becomes 30. Each victory uses less ammunition. Each attack more precise. Each break cleaner. Krupinski pushes him closer and closer and closer. Only if the windshield is filled up, then pull the trigger. 50 yards becomes 40 yards, becomes 30 yards. At 30 yards, Hartmann sees details. Sees the rivets on enemy aircraft. Sees the pilots inside. Sees their faces turn as they realize, too late, that someone is behind them. At 30 yards, his weapons don't just hit, they obliterate. Soviet fighters stagger under the impact. Pieces fly off. Engines explode. Wings fold. The aircraft don't just go down. They disintegrate in midair. When they go down that way, they never come back up. July 5, 1943. Hartmann has 21 victories. On this day, the Soviet Air Force launches a massive attack on German positions. Hundreds of aircraft. Wave after wave of fighters, bombers, ground attack aircraft. JG-52 scrambles everything. Every pilot. Every available aircraft. Hartmann takes off with Krupinski. They climb to altitude. Below them, the sky is full of Soviet aircraft. So many targets they can't count them all. For the next 3 hours, Hartmann flies mission after mission. Land. Refuel. Rearm. Take off. Repeat. On his first mission, he shoots down 2 La-5 fighters. On his second mission, he destroys 3 Il-2 Sturmovix. On his third mission, he downs 2 more fighters. 7 kills in 1 day. When he lands after the third mission, his crew chief, Sergeant Heinz Bimmel Mertens, approaches with the armorer. Booby, Mertens says. "The armorer has something to tell you." The armorer looks nervous. "Sir, for the 3 Stormoviks on your second mission, you fired 120 rounds total, 40 rounds per kill." Hartmann blinks. The Mi-109 carries ammunition for extended combat, hundreds of rounds. Most pilots expend 200-300 rounds per victory, if they score a victory at all. 40 rounds per kill is unheard of. "Are you sure?" Hartmann asks. "Checked it 3 times, sir." Krupinski appears grinning. "See, booby? I told you, get in close." That's the secret. By the end of July, Hartmann has 46 confirmed victories. By August 1, 1943, he has 50. His score is climbing so fast that other pilots are starting to talk. Not jealousy. Curiosity. How is this baby-faced 21-year-old shooting down aircraft faster than veterans with years of experience? The answer is simple. Has developed a system. A 4-step tactical sequence that he follows with religious devotion. See, decide, attack, reverse, or as Hartmann calls it, see, decide, attack, coffee break. August 1943. Lieutenant Kursk is killed in action. Kursk was the leader of 9th Squadron. Hermann Graf's old squadron, the first unit to produce a pilot with 200 victories. A squadron with a fighting tradition. Now Kursk is dead. The squadron needs a new leader. Gruppenkommandeur Günther Rall, himself an ace with over 200 victories, calls Hartmann into his office. "You're getting the 9th," Rall says. "I know you're young. I know you're only a lieutenant. But you can handle it." Hartmann is 21 years old. Hes being given command of a fighter squadron, roughly a dozen pilots under his command. Their lives are now his responsibility. He thinks about Kursk, dead. He thinks about the 12 pilots whose empty spaces mark his current squadron's flight line. But he thinks about Joseph Zverneman, who taught him about close-range attacks and who has another 9 months to live before someone shoots him in his parachute. He thinks about all the lessons Hes learned by watching other pilots die. And he makes a decision where he's going to teach his pilots the system. The 4-step sequence. Hes going to keep them alive. Step 1. Ascend to the pilot who sees the other pilot first already has half the victory. This is the first thing Hartmann teaches every new pilot assigned to his squadron. Forget about fancy aerobatics. Forget about courage and glory. See the enemy first. Everything else flows from this. Ground station's radio position reports enemy aircraft map coordinate G7 altitude 3,000 meters heading west. Hartmann processes the information, estimates the time to intercept, calculus approach angles, positions his squadron between the sun and the expected enemy location. But the ground stations aren't enough. There is starting point. The real detection comes from visual lookout. Hartmann develops almost supernatural ability to spot aircraft. He sees distant specks that other pilots miss, identifies aircraft types at ranges that should be impossible, sometimes spots enemy formations minutes before anyone else in his squadron sees them. His pilots think it's magic. It isn't. It's technique. He scans methodically, quadrant by quadrant, never staring at one spot, always moving his eyes, looking for movement, looking for the unnatural straight lines that betray aircraft against organic clouds and terrain. He knows what to look for: contrails at high altitude, glints of sun reflecting off canopies, shadows cast by aircraft against clouds, the dark speck that appears for 1 second and then disappears, which means an aircraft just turned and presented a different aspect. In one documented instance, Hartmann spots an enemy formation 7 minutes before his wingman sees it. 7 minutes. In aerial combat, that's an eternity. 7 minutes to position, to gain altitude advantage, to maneuver into the sun, to set up the perfect approach. By the time his wingman finally spots the enemy, Hartmann is already in position for the kill. See first, he tells his pilots. If you see first, you decide what happens next. If the enemy sees first, you're reacting. And if you're reacting, you're already losing. Step 2. Decide. Seeing the enemy doesn't mean attacking the enemy. This is the hardest lesson for young pilots to learn. They spot enemy aircraft and immediately want to attack. Aggression, initiative, glory. Hartmann forbids it. You see the enemy, he tells them. Now you decide. Can I attack successfully? Or do I wait? He asks his pilots to evaluate 6 factors. 1. Do I have surprise? If the enemy has seen you, don't attack. You've lost your advantage. Take a coffee break. Pull away, reposition. Wait for another opportunity. 2. Do I have altitude advantage? Energy is life. Altitude converts to speed. Speed converts to maneuverability. Never attack from below unless conditions are perfect. 3. Do I have sun position? The sun is your ally. Attack with the sun behind you. The enemy pilot looking at you will be blinded. 4. Are there clouds? If the enemy is flying in broken clouds, wait. He can disappear into cloud cover. You'll lose him. Wait until Hes in the clear. 5. Do I have enough fuel and ammunition? A kill means nothing if you don't make it home. 6. Am I outnumbered? If the odds are bad, don't attack. Wait. The enemy will eventually split up. Pick off stragglers. If all 6 factors are favorable, attack immediately. If even one factor is unfavorable, coffee break. Pull away. Wait. Reposition. Be patient. Patience, Hartmann teaches, is what separates aces from dead pilots. Young pilots don't have patience. They see an enemy and attack regardless of conditions. Sometimes they get lucky. Usually they die. Hartmann forces his pilots to wait, sometimes for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, shadowing the enemy, following, waiting for the perfect moment. When that moment comes, when all 6 factors align, then and only then attack. Blue sky conditions, high and fast approach. Hartmann climbs above the enemy, positions himself between the sun and the target, builds speed in a shallow dive. The enemy never sees him. The sun blinds them. By the time they realize something is wrong, Hartmann is already in firing position. Overcast conditions, low and fast. Hartmann uses the clouds as cover, approaches below the enemy using cloud layers to mask his position, pops up from below, where most pilots don't look, and attacks before they can react. Winter conditions, white camouflage. In winter, Korea 1 is painted white. Against gray overcast skies, the white Mi-109 is nearly invisible. Hartmann attacks from below. The enemy looks down and sees nothing, just white aircraft against white clouds. By the time they realize the white shape is moving, it's too late. The key Hartmann teaches is never attacking until conditions are perfect, even if it means following the enemy for half an hour, even if it means letting a target escape because the conditions pretty right. Every attack I don't make, he tells his pilots, is an attack where I don't die. Between July 1943 and December 1943, Hartmann flies hundreds of missions. He sees enemy aircraft on almost every flight, but he only attacks when conditions are perfect. His kill rate climbs. His survival rate remains 100%. His pilots start to understand. The coffee break isn't cowardice. It's discipline. And discipline, not courage, wins wars. Step 3: attacks. When Hartmann attacks, he attacks at point-blank range. Not 100 yards. Not 75 yards. Not even 50 yards. 30 yards. At 30 yards, the enemy aircraft fills his windscreen. He can see individual panel lines, can see the pilot's helmet, can count the rivets. At 30 yards, he pulls the trigger for 1 second. Maybe less. The Mi-109's weapons fire in unison. One 20mm cannon firing through the propeller hub. Two 7.92mm machine guns synchronized to fire through the propeller arc. For 1 second, a cone of destruction erupts from Korea 1's nose. High explosive cannon shells mixed with armor-piercing machine gun bullets. A blizzard of metal traveling at supersonic speeds. At 30 yards, this concentrated firepower is apocalyptic. Soviet fighters, Yak-3s, La-5s, La-7s, disintegrate. Not shot down, disintegrate. Wings fold. Fuselages break apart. Engines explode. Pilots die instantly, often without knowing what hit them. Il-2 Sturmovix, famous for their armor feared by German ground troops as flying tanks, crumple under the assault. Hartmann aims for the unarmored belly where Grislovsky taught him the oil cooler is located. 1 second burst. The oil cooler ruptures. Oil sprays. The engine seizes. The Sturmovik drops like a stone. Even American-made aircraft, P-39 Area Cobras and P-63 King Cobras supplied to the Soviets under Lend-Lease, explode spectacularly. The nose-mounted engine and the center-mounted cannon ammunition create a volatile combination. Hartmann's cannon shells hit. The ammunition cooks off. The aircraft turns into a fireball. At 30 yards, Hartmann uses minimal ammunition. 40 rounds per kill. Sometimes less, sometimes as little as 20 rounds. His armorer files report subject used 100 to 300 rounds per kill. Some expend all their ammunition, 500-600 rounds, and score no kills at all. Hartmann teaches his pilots only if the windshield is filled up, then pull the trigger. Not almost filled. Not mostly filled. Completely filled. If you can still see empty sky around the target, You're too far away. Get closer. The young pilots resist. Getting that close feels suicidal. At 30 yards, if the enemy explodes, you're flying through the debris. If he pulls up suddenly, you'll collide. If he rolls, you might not have time to react. Hartmann forces them to practice, over and over, approaching closer and closer and closer, until the fear becomes familiarity, until 30 yards feels normal. The closer you get before firing, the more devastating the effect, and the more certain the kill, he tells them. And then, but the closer you get, the faster you must break away. Step 4. Reverse. The break is everything. All the seeing, deciding, and attacking means nothing if you don't survive the break. Hartmann's rule: break immediately after firing. Don't wait to see if you hit. Don't watch the enemy go down. Don't admire your work. Fire. Break. Gone. 1 second of firing. 1 second of breaking. Maximum 2 seconds from trigger pull to complete separation from the engagement. His standard break: roll, inverted, pull hard, dive 2,000 feet under the enemy. Why under? Because most enemy pilots expect you to climb away. They look up. They don't look down. While they're searching above, Hartmann is below, pulling up from behind and underneath for a second attack if needed. If the enemy survived the first pass, rare but possible, Hartmann is already in position for another strike. From below, he can stay with any turn the enemy attempts. He maintains energy, maintains surprise. Second pass. Same technique. 30 yards. 1 second burst. Break immediately. If the enemy still survives, very rare, Hartmann climbs for a third pass. But usually there's no need. The first pass is enough. At 30 yards with 1 second of fire, nothing survives. The break isn't just about survival. It's about efficiency. Hartmann teaches his pilots, I'm not here to dogfight. I'm here to destroy aircraft and go home alive. 1 pass, 1 kill, next target. Dogfighting is for the muscle flyers, the pilots who love the dance, the twisting, turning, sweating, exhausting dance of circular combat. Hartmann hates it. Dogfighting is inefficient. You burn fuel, you burn ammunition, you lose your overview of the battle. While you're focused on one enemy, 3 others can get into position to shoot you down. Dogfighters could do it their way, he says, and most of them loved the dogfight. I preferred my own methods. His method: see, decide, attack, break. Never deviate. Never. Young pilots beg him, can't we just turn with them? Just once? No, Hartmann says. Never turn with the enemy. Never dogfight. You'll die. But the other squadrons are full of dead pilots, Hartmann finishes. Between August 1943 and December 1943, Hartmann shoots down another 65 aircraft. His score reaches 100 aerial victories. In any other air force, Hartmann would be a national hero. In Germany, he's just another pilot doing his job. The standard for recognition keeps rising. 100 victories isn't enough anymore. Not on the Eastern Front, where the sky is full of Soviet aircraft and the opportunities are endless. Hartmann keeps flying, keeps teaching, keeps following the system. See, decide, attack, break. Never deviate. The Eastern Front, 1943-1944. The Germans were almost always heavily outnumbered. This is the reality of air combat over Russia. For every German fighter, there are 5 Soviet fighters. 10 Soviet fighters, sometimes 20. The Soviets have numbers. They have new aircraft. Yak-3s that can outturn the Mi-109 La-7s, that are faster P-39 Erich Cobras with heavy cannons. They also have good pilots now. The incompetent ones died in 1941 and 1942. The survivors are experienced, skilled, dangerous. The Guards fighter regiments, elite Soviet units, are specifically briefed about the top German aces. They know about Hartmann. They've given him a nickname, the Black Devil of the South, because of Kursk distinctive black nose marking, because he operates primarily on the southern sector of the Eastern Front, because he keeps killing their pilots. Soviet commanders reportedly place a bounty on him. Capture or kill, either one. In one documented incident, a Soviet pilot who forced landed near German lines is captured. The first thing he does, before being taken to proper POW processing, is asked to see Hartmann's aircraft. He wants to see Kursk, the legendary Black Devils fighter. Hartmann obliges, takes the Soviet pilot on a tour, shows him the Mi-109 up close. The Russian examines everything with professional interest. Later, through an interpreter, the Soviet pilot expresses confusion. They told us all captured Germans would be shot. But you gave me schnapps and showed me your aircraft. Propaganda on both sides. The war of misinformation runs parallel to the war in the air. But the Soviet pilot's presence makes one thing clear. The enemy knows who Hartmann is. They potting him specifically. Which means, eventually, inevitably, someone will bounce him. The defensive system. Hartmann develops defensive tactics as carefully as he developed offensive tactics. When attacked from above and behind, from the perch, the position of advantage, Hartmann executes a hard climbing turn into the enemy's firing pass. Not away. Into. Every instinct screams to turn away from the attacker. To run. To evade. Hartmann does the opposite. He turns into the attack. Why? Because turning into the attack forces the enemy pilot to adjust his firing solution. He was expecting Hartmann to turn away. He was leading his target based on that expectation. When Hartmann turns the opposite direction, the Knight's lead is wrong. His bullets go wide, and while the enemy is adjusting, Hartmann completes the turn, breaks away, and disappears. When attacked from below and behind, less common but it happens, Hartmann goes hard left or right and down, again turning into the pass. Then, immediately negative Gs. Push the stick forward. The Mi-109 enters a brief moment of weightlessness. The pursuing aircraft can't follow. By the time the Soviet pilot adjusts, Hartmann is gone. But these are standard defensive moves, taught to all fighter pilots. Effective, but not revolutionary. Hartmann's real defensive innovation, the maneuver that saves his life multiple times, is his last-ditch escape. The last-ditch maneuver. A Soviet fighter is behind Hartmann. Closing range. Good pilot. Experienced. Holding his fire. Getting closer. And closer. Hartmann knows. This is an old-timer. A veteran. Someone who won't make mistakes. Most pilots in this situation would panic. Execute hard brakes. Try to outturn the pursuer. Enter a dogfight. Hartmann does something that looks insane. He flies straight and level. He doesn't turn. Doesn't brake. Doesn't evade. Just flies straight. But he's not doing nothing. His feet are working the rudder pedals. Not enough to cause an obvious turn. Just enough to create a slight slip. The aircraft's nose points one direction, while the fuselage drifts at a minute angle. From behind, the slip is invisible. The Soviet pilot sees a target flying straight. Easy shot. He closes to firing range. His finger tightens on the trigger. He fires. The instant Hartmann sees the first tracers, he acts. Stick forward. Hard. Kick bottom rudder. Full deflection. The Mi-109's nose drops violently. The aircraft transitions from level flight to a dive, but not a normal dive. This is an outside maneuver. Negative Gs. Weightlessness. The forces on Hartmann's aircraft change from +1 G to -1.5 Gs in a fraction of a second. The effect on the pursuing pilot is devastating. He was pulling positive Gs. Turning to track Hartmann, body pressed into the seat, blood pooling in his legs, vision narrowing, every muscle tensed against the G-forces. Suddenly Hartmann disappears. not banking away, not climbing, just gone, vanished beneath the nose of the attacking aircraft. The Soviet pilot experiences negative Gs. Instantly. No warning, no transition. He lifts from his seat. His body hangs against his shoulder straps. His stomach lurches. Blood rushes to his head. His vision goes red at the edges. He can't track the target. Can't aim. Can't even see where Hartmann went. The aircraft's nose is pointing up while Hartmann is diving down. The Soviet pilot is hanging in his straps essentially upside down, trying to push the stick forward while his body is being lifted away from the controls. It's an impossible situation for firing, for tracking, for anything. By the time the Soviet pilot recovers, rolls over, regains positive Gs, looks around, Hartmann is gone. A mile away. 2 miles. Already pulling up for another attack or running for home. The concept of simply sitting there while an enemy aircraft rushed in with a battery of guns charged was hard to accept in theory, and even tougher to execute in actual combat, Hartmann later admits. But it works. He teaches the maneuver to his pilots, calls it part of my personal twist regulations, his defensive rulebook. Most of them can't do it. The psychological barrier is too high. Flying straight and level while an enemy closes behind you, guns loaded, finger on trigger. It requires ice-cold nerves. Most pilots break too early, or panic, or try to turn and enter a dogfight. But the few who master it survive. Hartmann uses the maneuver multiple times, saves his life each time, turns certain death into clean escape. He also learns to read his attackers during those few seconds before they fire. Inexperienced pilots always give themselves away. They open fire too early, from too far away. Their bullets arrive seconds before they're in lethal range. When Hartmann sees this, he knows inexperienced pilot. He can reverse the attack, become the hunter instead of the hunted. But when an attacker holds fire, keeps closing, no shots yet, that's when Hartmann knows old-timer at the controls. Real threat, real battle coming. Then it was certain that an old-timer was at the controls. A battle was then in the offing. Those battles are rare. Most Soviet pilots attack too aggressively, make mistakes, die. But when Hartmann faces a real veteran, a pilot with discipline, patience, skill, those fights become chess matches. Move and counter-move. Attack and counter-attack. Energy management. Position warfare. Hartmann survives them all. Over 800 aerial battles. Over 800 engagements where he could have died. Shot down 16 times. 14 by ground fire. Once by American P-51s. Once by debris from his own kill. But never wounded. Never hit by enemy fire in air-to-air combat. Never even grazed. Too stunning an achievement to be attributed to blind luck. The system works. See, decide, attack, break. And when defense is needed, turn into the attack, use negative Gs, read the enemy, stay calm. But while Hartmann survives, the pilots around him keep dying. Eastern Front. Summer 1943. A transport aircraft lands at JG-52's forward airfield. The door opens. 6 young pilots climb out. Fresh from flight school. Barely 20 hours in the Mechman Ren's courses. Edley Mauyervmang. Czech. 150. They've been told they're joining the most successful fighter wing in the Luftwaffe. JG-52. Over 10,000 aerial victories. Home to the top aces. The elite. They report to Hartmann's squadron. Livensiks Withiam Letu. Lubsavis, but Ilir. Lulir. Vizira. Verrier. Torten Herthetshi. Like Strungen, Versing 3 cities. And sales. Then Pizea. Then I was were. Michis and Sheks. Liestern. Mortening hours. Elst of them Kiel. barely take off and land without killing themselves. None of them have ever fired the guns in combat. None have ever been shot at. None have experienced the terror of a Soviet fighter on their tail cannons blazing. Hartmann briefs them on the four-step system. C. D-side attack break. He explains the defensive maneuvers, the coffee break concept, the importance of patience. They nod eagerly. They understand. They're ready. They're not ready. Monday, they arrive. Tuesday, orientation. Tuesday, ramble. At dawn, Soviet bombers approaching German lines. Hartmann leads. The 6 new pilots fly as wingmen to experienced pilots. They engage. The fight lasts 11 minutes. Chaos in the sky. Aircraft everywhere. Soviet fighters, German fighters, bombers. Ground fire tracers, smoke flames. When the squadron reforms and heads home, one of the 6 new pilots is missing. No radio call. No parachute. No crash site located. Just gone. Thursday. I know there were. One of the 3 is shot down. Survives the crash. Captured by Soviet forces. Never heard from again. Sunday, rest day. No missions. Monday. 1 week since they arrived. 2 survivors from the original 6. Both are withdrawn from combat. Combat fatigue. Shell shock. They can't function. Can't eat. Can't sleep. One is shaking so badly he can't hold a cup without spilling it. 6 pilots. 7 days. 4 dead, 2 psychologically destroyed. Hartmann walks the flight line that evening. 4 empty spaces where aircraft should be. 4 Mi-109s destroyed. 4 young men who arrived Monday morning full of enthusiasm dead by Saturday. This isn't unusual. This is typical. The pattern repeats weekly, monthly, constantly. Young pilots arrive. Young pilots die. They come and go in waves like this, Hartmann observes. The reasons vary. Lack of training. They simply don't have the flying skills to survive combat. Can't maneuver the Mi-109 aggressively. Can't track targets. Can't shoot accurately. Can't recover from spins or dives. Lack of discipline. They see an enemy and attack immediately regardless of conditions. No coffee break. No patience. Pure aggression. They die in the first 30 seconds of their first engagement. Bad luck. Ground fire. Mechanical failure. Mid-air collision. Friendly fire. 1,000 ways to die that have nothing to do with enemy fighters. And propaganda. This one infuriates Hartmann more than anything else. The young pilots arrive believing the propaganda. Believing they're invincible. Believing 1 German pilot equals 10 Soviet pilots. Believing the Mi-109 is superior to everything in the sky. They come to the front pleading fanatically, suicidally to be allowed to go on operations, Hartmann later tells Hitler during their meeting. They know they are not ready to fly combat. They can barely get the Mi-109 up and back safely as it is without fighting. But they come pleading. Because propaganda told them it would be easy. Told them they would be heroes. Told them 1 mission, 1 kill, glory forever. Instead, 1 mission, 1 death, forgotten by Wednesday, the day 5 pilots died. Hartmann never gives the specific date in his recorded infonotes. Just the same day as Krupinski. Krupinski is shot down, survives, crash lands behind German lines, walks away from the wreckage shaken but unhurt. 5 other pilots, 1/3 of the entire squadron, are not so lucky. The mission bomber escort. Soviet Il-2 Sturmovix attacking German positions. JG-52 scrambles to intercept. The Sturmovix arrive in force. 60 aircraft, maybe more, escorted by 40 Soviet fighters. Yak-3s and La-5s. Guards Fighter Regiment. The best pilots. The best aircraft. JG-52 puts up 18 fighters, outnumbered more than 5-1. The engagement becomes a furball. No organization, no tactics, just chaos. Aircraft everywhere. Everyone fighting everyone. Hartmann follows his system C-decide attack break. He bounces a Yak-3, shoots it down, breaks away clean. Climbs, repositions, spots another target. A Sturmovik trails, smoke drops. Hartmann breaks away, looks around for threats. Clear. Climbs again, searches for his squadron. He sees flames, multiple fires on the ground. Aircraft crashing. German aircraft. He counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crashes in visual range. Krupinski's voice on the radio, "Booby M down. Crash landed. I'm okay. Near the river. Thank God." Krupinski survived, but the others. Hartmann orbits the area watching, hoping for parachutes, hoping for survivors. He sees one parachute, just one, out of 6 crashes. When the squadron regroups and flies home, the count is devastating: 5 pilots killed in action. 1 survived crash landing. 12 aircraft, left from the original 18. That evening, Hartmann sits in the squadron ready room. Empty chairs everywhere. Tables where men used to play cards, now just empty wooden surfaces. Bimmel Mertens approaches. "Booby, we need to talk about aircraft assignments. With 5 lost today." Hartmann cuts him off. "Tomorrow." "Well, deal with it tomorrow." "But sir." "Tomorrow." Mertens nods, leaves. Hartmann sits alone in the ready room, stares at the empty chairs. 5 dead. Same day. Him 90+ victories and untouched. The mathematics don't make sense. Unless the system works. Unless discipline matters. Unless C-decide attack break is the difference between life and death. Good comrades were being lost all the time, he later writes. The war could not stop on that account. 2 days later, 4 more Lag 5s go down under Hartmann's guns. 3 more IL-2s, 7 kills in 1 day. His score: 22 confirmed victories. He keeps flying, keeps teaching, keeps trying to keep his pilots alive. Most of them die anyway. Günter Capito, the only wingman Hartmann ever lost while they were flying together. Capito is a former bomber pilot, transferred to fighters, eager to prove himself, solid flyer in training. Good marks, good attitude, but he has a bomber pilot's instincts. Bombers fly straight, hold formation, don't make aggressive maneuvers. Hartmann tries to train it out of him. You're in a fighter now. You need to move, turn, react, stay loose. Capito understands intellectually, but instinct is instinct. The mission: free hunt over Soviet territory, looking for targets of opportunity. They spot a flight of Soviet fighters. 4 La-5s. Hartmann evaluates altitude advantage. Sun position good. Surprise intact. All factors favorable. Attacking Hartmann radios. Capito, stay on the perch. Watch our backs. Roger. Hartmann dives. Picks the trailing La-5. Close to 30 yards. 1 second burst. The La-5 shutters, breaks apart. Hartmann breaks left, dives away. Capito checks 6. Clear. No response. Capito. Nothing. Hartmann looks around. Where's Capito? There, below. A Soviet fighter. One of the remaining La-5s. On Capito's tail. Closing range. Capito. Brake. Hard right. Capito finally responds. But he doesn't brake hard. He executes a gentle bomber-style turn. Banking slowly, trying to maintain altitude and speed. The La-5 follows easily, matches the turn, gets inside Capito's turning circle, opens fire. Hartmann is already diving, trying to save his wingman. But Hez too far away, too high, can't close the distance fast enough. The La-5's cannons hit Capito's Mi-109. The cockpit area, the engine. Smoke pours from the fighter. The engine stops. Capito's aircraft noses over, goes into a dive. Hartmann shoots the attacking La-5, doesn't even remember pulling the trigger. 1 second burst, the Soviet fighter explodes, but Capito is gone. The Mi-109 dives vertically. Hartmann watches, hoping for a parachute, hoping Capito can bail out. No parachute. The Mi-109 hits the ground at terminal velocity, disintegrates on impact. Nothing survives that. Hartmann circles the crash site. Nothing moving. No chance of survival. He flies home alone. That night he lies in his bunk staring at the ceiling, replaying the fight, analyzing. Capito didn't brake hard enough, didn't horse the Mi-109 into a sharp turn. Flew like a bomber pilot. Gentle turn. Predictable. Easy target. One mistake. One gentle turn instead of a hard brake. Dead. Failed to horse his Mi-109 into a turn sharp enough to avoid an attack is how the official report phrases it. Hartmann writes a letter to Capito's family. Lies. Tells them he died instantly. Didn't suffer. Shot down while fighting courageously. He doesn't tell them your son died because bomber pilot instincts don't work in fighters. Because gentle turns get you killed. Because I tried to teach him and failed. Capito is the only wingman Hartmann loses while flying together. The only one. It haunts him. For months. For years. If he'd been closer. If he'd positioned better. If he'd emphasized the hard brake training more. If. But the war doesn't stop for guilt. The missions continue. New wingmen arrive. Hartmann teaches them. Most survive because he teaches them well. Some die because they won't learn. Or can't learn. Or learn too slowly. The mathematics of survival continue. The system works for those who follow it. Kills those who don't. Josef Svernemann. 60 victories. Knight's Cross. One of the tigers who taught Hartmann about close-range attacks. 50-50 muscle and head flyer. Athletic, thoughtful, skilled. April 8, 1944. Lake Garda, Italy. JG-52 has been temporarily deployed to Italy to counter American bomber raids. Svernemann leads a flight against American P-38 Lightnings, escorting B-17s. The fight is brutal. The P-38s are good aircraft. Fast, well-armed, flown by experienced pilots. Not like the early war Americans who came to Europe in 1943. These pilots know what they're doing. Svernemann shoots down one P-38. Confirmed kill. Turns for another. But there's a third P-38 he doesn't see. Behind and above. Perfect position. The American pilot fires. A long burst. 50 caliber machine guns and 20 millimeter cannon. The rounds rip through Svernemann's Mi-109. Engine hit. Cockpit hit. Control surfaces hit. The aircraft is finished. Svernemann knows it immediately. He can feel the controls going mushy. The engine temperature climbing. The aircraft vibrating, parts coming loose. He jettisons the canopy. Unbuckles. Climbs out onto the wing. Jumps. His parachute deploys. Good shoot. Good deployment. Hes floating down. Alive. Going to be a prisoner of war, yes. But alive. 60 victories. 26 years old. Hell survive the war. Go home. See his family. The P-38 pilot sees the parachute. Sees Svernemann floating down defenseless. And oh, but radio discipline in combat is poor. Maybe the shooter doesn't hear. Maybe he doesn't care. The 50 caliber rounds hit Svernemann. The parachute shreds. Svernemann's body jerks, goes limp. He falls the remaining 1,000 feet without a parachute. Hes dead before he hits the ground. 60 victories. 26 years old. Killed while helpless in his parachute. When news reaches JG-52, The pilots are enraged. Shooting pilots in parachutes is considered murder, violation of the unwritten rules of air combat. You kill the aircraft, you kill the pilot if you must. But once Hes bailed out defenseless, the fight is over. You leave him alone. The Soviets sometimes shoot German pilots in parachutes. The Germans consider this barbaric, proof that the Russians are savages. Now an American does it. To one of their best pilots. Hartmann hears the news, sits in silence, processes. Swarnaman, the man who taught him about closing to point-blank range, who showed him that at 50 yards nothing survives, who demonstrated the perfect attack, fast approach, devastating fire, immediate break. Dead at 26, 60 victories. Killed after successfully bailing out. The lesson. Even if you survive the aircraft being shot down, you're still not safe. Even if you bail out successfully, even if you do everything right, you can still die. No one is invincible. No one is safe. Not Swarnaman with 60 kills. Not Hartmann with 90. Not anyone. The only way to survive is to never get shot down in the first place. Follow the system. Every mission. Every time. Never deviate. Because if you do get shot down, even if you survive the bailout, you might end up like Swarnaman. Dead in the air. Helpless. Murdered. Hartmann adds Swarnaman to the mental list of ghosts. The list that started with the nameless flight leader who pressed his attack too long. That continued with the 12 pilots whose empty spaces marked his original squadron's flight line. That added Capito. That adds new names weekly. The list grows longer. The squadron grows smaller. The war grinds on. July 1st, 1944. Hartmann's score reaches 250 victories. The mission is routine. Soviet Il-2 Sturmovix attacking German artillery. Hartmann spots 3 of them from altitude, circling low, intent on their targets, not watching their tails. He evaluates altitude advantage. Sun position good, surprise intact, attack. He dives, closes on the first Sturmovik. 50 yards, 40, 30, full windscreen, trigger, 1 second burst. The Il-2 explodes, not gradually, not a fire that builds, an explosion. Fuel tanks detonate. The aircraft tears apart. Hartmann breaks left, already positioning for the second attack. The second Sturmovik hasn't reacted yet. Still focused on ground targets. Still hasn't seen the death coming for him. Hartmann attacks again. Same technique. 30 yards. 1 second burst. The second Il-2 staggers. Smoke. Fire. It drops. Crashes into the ground. 2 kills. 15 seconds. The third Sturmovik finally realizes what's happening. Tries to maneuver. Too late. Hartmann is already on him. Third attack. Third 1 second burst. Third explosion. 3 Il-2 Sturmoviks destroyed. 1 mission. Maybe 45 seconds total combat time. When Hartmann lands, Bimmel Mertens and the armorer are waiting. Booby Mertens says, "The armorer counted your ammunition. And 120 rounds. For 3 kills. 40 rounds per kill. The squadron celebrates. 250 victories. Only a handful of pilots in history have reached this level. Hermann Graf. Walter Novotny. Gerd Barkhorn. Günter Rall. That's the entire list. Now Erich Hartmann, 22 years old, the youngest pilot to reach 250. They carry him from the aircraft to the mess. Beer flows. Toasts are drunk. Songs are sung. 250 victories for him. Ein Spans, 60 49 there are wise. How many times did he see the enemy first? How many times did the system save his life? 800. More. Has flown over 1,000 combat missions now. Engaged the enemy more than 800 times. 800 chances to die. And here he sits. Untouched. Unscratched. 250 victories. While pilots with 0 victories lie in graves across Russia, the mathematics still don't make sense. Unless the system is everything. Unless discipline is everything. Unless see-decide attack break is the razor-thin line between life and death. August 23, 1944. The most productive day of Hartmann's career. 3 missions. 8 victories. His score climbs to 290. 4 Yak-3 fighters in the morning. 2 La-5s in the afternoon. 2 more Yaks in the evening. Every attack textbook perfect. See-decide attack break. 30 yards. 1-second bursts. Immediate breaks. 8 Soviet aircraft destroyed. 8 pilots dead. Hartmann lands after the 3rd mission with ammunition to spare. The number, 290, has significance. Hess passed Gerd Barkhorn, his friend and rival. Barkhorn was wounded months ago. Transferred to the Reich defense. Fighting American bombers over Germany. Hartmann is now the top-scoring fighter ace in history. Not just German history. Not just World War II. All history. Higher than Manfred von Richthofen. Higher than Eddie Rickenbacker. Higher than René Fonck. Higher than every ace from World War I. Higher than every ace from any Air Force currently fighting. At 22 years old, Erich Hartmann is the most successful fighter pilot who has ever lived. The next day he flies again. Shoots down 2 more aircraft. Score 290 Beside him, war correspondent Heinz Eckert, reporter, taking notes, wanting to capture this historic moment. They know Hartmann is at 297 victories, 3 more to reach 300. No pilot in history has reached this number. 2 ships course east, Dahanker reports. They are hunting. The RT crackles. Voices, call signs, position reports. 15:44 hours. Hartmann's voice. Have you any enemy observations? Ground station. None. Hartmann frustrated. Why the hell did they chase us up then? 15:50 hours. Ground station. Enemy echelon over Sandowie is approaching. 15:51. 8th Squadron, watch out. Airacobras. Damn. 16:00 bullseye. First kill. 16:03 bullseye. Second kill. Junger and Eckert lean forward. 1 more. Just 1 more. 16:06. Watch out backward and upwards. Eris to the right. Bullseye. 300. The radio post explodes in celebration. Pilots yelling. Ground crews cheering. Junger can't hear anything over the noise. People shaking his shoulders. Pounding his back. Wingman's voice through the noise. Congratulations on the 300th. Ground station trying to transmit congratulations. But nobody can hear. Too much celebration. Too much chaos. 16:15 combat continues. Hartmann keeps flying. Keeps fighting. 6 kilometers west of Sandowie. 6 light bombers height 2,000 meters circling. Ah. There's another echelon there Keating. Their attention continues. Standard combat. Nothing special. Just another day over the Eastern Front. Except now the top scorer in history has 301 victories instead of 300. August 25, 1944. Berchtesgaden. Hitler's mountain retreat. Hartmann stands in the reception line, wearing his dress uniform. Knight's cross with oak leaves and swords at his throat. And now, diamonds. The highest military decoration Germany can award. Only 9 people in the entire Luftwaffe have received the diamonds. Hartmann is number 9. The youngest, at 22 years old. Hitler approaches. Looks smaller in person than in photographs. Tired. Aged. This is August 1944. The war is clearly lost. The Führer knows it. Hitler pins the diamonds to Hartmann's uniform, shakes his hand. The handshake is weak, perfunctory. 300 victories, Hitler says. Remarkable achievement, Major Hartmann. Hartmann was promoted to major for this ceremony. Jumped ranks. From lieutenant to major. Skipped captain entirely. Thank you, mein Führer. Hitler gestures to a side room. Private conversation. Just the two of them and a few aides. They sit. Lunch is served. Hitler picks at his food. Doesn't eat much. Tell me about the Eastern Front, Hitler says. The air war. How are we doing? Hartmann hesitates. Has been instructed not to give bad news. Not to mention problems. Not to upset the Führer. But he thinks about the 12 pilots from his original squadron. The 5 who died in one day. Capito. Zwernemann. All the young pilots arriving with 20 hours training and dying within days. Mein Führer, Hartmann says carefully. Training is insufficient now for fighter pilots. Hitler looks up. Interested. I get young men coming to my squadron in Russia with less than 60 hours total flying time, and only 20 hours of that in the May 109. They have to fly combat with such slender training. This accounts for most of our Eastern Front fighter losses. Hitler nods slowly, listening. Hartmann continues. These young boys come to us and are shot down practically immediately. They come and go in waves like this. It is criminal, mein Führer. One of the aides shifts uncomfortably. This is exactly the kind of thing they didn't want Hartmann to say. They know they are not ready to fly combat, Hartmann says. They can barely get the Me 109 up and back safely as it is without fighting. But they come to the front pleading fanatically, suicidally to be allowed to go on operations. The propaganda, Hitler says quietly. Yes, mein Führer. Home front propaganda. They believe they will be heroes. They believe one German pilot equals 10 Soviets. They arrive expecting glory. They die within days. Hitler slumps in his chair. Looks incredibly tired. Hartmann, all you say may well be true. But now it is too late. As I said, the war is lost militarily. From all sides people come to me every day, with ideas for rockets, tanks, guns, submarines, new operations, offensives, withdrawals, and with crazy inventions. I am the one who must decide. Now there is no longer any time. The Führer stands abruptly. The interview is over. Hitler's handshake is slack, perfunctory. He looks through Hartmann, not at him. Hartmann leaves, flies back to Russia, back to his squadron, back to the war. He knows he will never see Hitler alive again. April 4, 1945. Hartmann's score reaches 350 victories. First pilot in history to reach this number. First pilot in history to reach 300. Now 350. The war is clearly ending. Soviet forces are deep into Germany. American and British forces approaching from the west. The Luftwaffe is shattered. Fuel shortages. Bax and Rumkelisch Willigen slides. Permalarade. Hartmann's corps reaches teaching. Keeps following the system. See decide, attack, break. Never deviate. May 8, 1945. The last mission. Germany surrenders at midnight. May 8th becomes May 9th. The war in Europe is officially over. But Hartmann doesn't know this at dawn. Communication is chaos. No one knows what's happening. Rumors everywhere. At 0600 hours, Soviet aircraft appear. Yak fighters. Attacking German positions. Hartmann scrambles. One last mission. Takes off with his squadron. Climbs to intercept. He spots a Yak-11, Soviet advanced trainer. Probably a pilot who couldn't wait for a real fighter, who took whatever was available, who wanted to fly one last mission before the war ended. Hartmann evaluates altitude advantage. Sun position good, surprise intact, attack. He dives. The Yak-11 never sees him coming. 30 yards. 1 second burst. The yak explodes. Victory number 352. Hartmann breaks away, climbs, looks around for more targets. The sky is empty. The Soviet aircraft have withdrawn. The attack is over. Hartmann flies home, lands, shuts down the engine. Bimmel Mertens approaches. Booby, the war is over. We just got word. Germany surrendered at midnight. Hartmann sits in the cockpit. Doesn't move. The war is over. 352 victories. The most successful fighter pilot in history. And Hes alive, untouched, unscratched, never wounded in aerial combat, while everyone around him died. The burning. Deutsch Broad Airfield, Czechoslovakia, May 8, 1945. 1400 hours. Orders arrive. Destroy all aircraft. Don't let them fall into Soviet hands. Hartmann supervises the destruction personally. His pilots drag aircraft into a pile, pour fuel over them, prepare to ignite. Korea 1 is among them. The Mi-109 with the distinctive black nose. The aircraft that carried him to 352 victories. The aircraft that never failed him. Never let him down. Hartmann personally pours fuel on Korea 1. His hands shake slightly. Bimmel Mertens approaches. Booby, we're ready. Light them, Hartmann says quietly. The fuel ignites. Flames spread. Aircraft begin burning. The ammunition cooks off. Cannon shells exploding. Machine gun rounds popping. Fuel drums detonating. Korea 1 sinks to the ground as its undercarriage collapses from the heat. The fighter disappears behind flames. Gone. Black smoke rises. A pillar visible for miles. An appropriate marker for the funeral pyre of Germany's most successful fighter wing. JG-52. Over 10,000 aerial victories in 4 years. The most successful fighter wing in history. Now burning. Finished. Hartmann watches until the fires burn down. Until nothing remains but twisted metal and ash. Then, he turns away. Leads his pilots on foot toward American lines. Hermann Graf and Hartmann Grasser with him. Several hundred ground crew. Mechanics, armorers, cooks. Everyone who served JG-52. They walk for hours. Across fields, down roads, through villages. Evening. They see American tanks. Hartmann approaches, salutes the American officer. Major Erich Hartmann, Luftwaffe. We surrender. The American officer stares. How many of you? Several hundred. You're surrendering to us. Not the Russians. We're surrendering to you. The Americans take them into custody. Pow Pow camp. Temporary. They expect to be processed and released within weeks, maybe months. The war is over. Germany lost. Time to go home. 1 week later, the Americans betray them. Trucks arrive. Soviet markings. Russian troops. The Americans are handing German prisoners over to the Soviets. Hartmann protests. We surrendered to you, Americans, not Russians. The American officer won't meet his eyes. Orders. We're turning you over to Soviet custody. This is a violation of orders. I'm sorry. The trucks roll east. Into Soviet territory, into captivity. Hartmann will spend the next 10 years in Soviet prison camps. Accused of war crimes. Accused of shooting Soviet pilots in parachutes. Accused of attacking civilian targets. None of it true. All of it propaganda. Hell survived torture. Starvation. Forced labor. Isolation. Repeated attempts to break him. To recruit him as a Soviet collaborator. Hell refuse. Every time. At Kirov labor camp, 1,500 Germans are interned. Hartmann among them. They dig peat in the frozen swamps. By hand. No machinery. No tools except shovels. In winter. In temperatures 40 below zero. They're fed 1 meal a day. Thin soup. A piece of bread. maybe 800 calories. They're working 12 hours a day, doing manual labor in sub-zero conditions. After the first winter, only 200 of the 1,500 are still alive. 1,300 men dead. Starved. Worked to death. Frozen. Diseased. Hartmann survives because of his rank. Major. Staff officer. After 5 weeks at Kirov, Hes transferred to Gryazovets, a special camp for officers. But he knows, if Hed stayed at Kirov, he would have died with the others. Another survival. Another statistical anomaly. Why him? Why not the 1,300 others? No answer. Just luck. Rank. Timing. At Gryazovets, conditions are marginally better, but still brutal. Still designed to break prisoners, to extract confessions, to turn German officers into Soviet collaborators. Hartmann refuses. Every interrogation, every offer, every threat. Did you shoot Soviet pilots in parachutes? No. Did you attack civilian targets? No. Did you commit war crimes? No. They beat him, isolate him, starve him, put him in the bunker. Solitary confinement, no light, no heat, no human contact. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. He loses track of time, but he doesn't break, doesn't confess, doesn't collaborate. He survives by following a system, different from his combat system, but still a system. Maintain dignity, maintain sanity, maintain hope. Never give them what they want. Never. The other prisoners look to him for leadership. Hess Erich Hartmann, the Black Devil, the ace with 352 victories. If he can resist, they can resist. Some break. Confess. Collaborate. Get better treatment. Sometimes get released early. Hartmann watches them leave. Doesn't judge. Survival takes different forms for different men. But for him, no confession, no collaboration, no matter how long they keep him. Years. At Shakti camp, prisoners revolt. Hartmann is involved. The revolt fails. Hartmann is punished. More isolation, more starvation, more torture. At Kutenikovo camp, Hartmann organizes a hunger strike. Prisoners refuse to work, refuse to eat the inadequate rations, demand better treatment, demand adherence to Geneva Convention. The Soviets respond with force. Hartmann is dragged from his cell, strapped down, force-fed through a tube down his throat. The process is brutal, violent, designed to break his will. It doesn't work. After the force-feeding stops, Hartmann recovers, organizes another hunger strike, and another, and another. The Soviets finally realize, this man will never break. They can kill him, but they can't break him. Stalin dies. Conditions in the camp slowly begin to improve. Slowly. Very slowly. Negotiations between West Germany and the Soviet Union. Chancellor Adenauer visits Moscow. Discusses prisoner repatriation. The Soviets agreed to release some German POWs. October 1955. Hartmann is on the release list. 10 years. Has been in Soviet captivity for 10 years. They put him on a train, westbound, toward Germany, toward home. Hes 33 years old. He was 23 when captured, lost a decade of his life. At the German border, the train stops. The doors open. Hartmann steps out. German soil. Western Germany. Freedom. His mother is waiting. Elisabeth Hartmann. She never gave up hope. Spent 10 years campaigning for his release, writing letters, organizing protests, demanding answers. She sees him step off the train, barely recognizes him. Hes thin, gaunt, face, aged beyond his years, but alive. They embrace, both crying. Erich, she whispers, "You're home." The mathematics of survival. Final accounting. Erich Hartmann's record 300 retired 1970. As colonel died 1993. Age 71. Natural causes. His squadron's record. 5 pilots lost in single day. Lieutenant Kursk killed Josef Svernemann killed. Ginter Capito shot down dozens of young pilots, dead within days of arrival. Hundreds of pilots cycled through JG-52 over 4 years. Most died with 0 or single-digit victories. Of the 10,000 total victories, JG-52 accumulated distributed across hundreds of pilots. Only a handful of top aces survived the war. The survivors who made it: Gerd Barkhorn, 301 victories, became NATO general, died 1983 in car crash. Walter Krupinski, 1907 victories, survived the war. Wilhelm Botz, 237 victories, survived, lost thumb to P-47, became Luftwaffe commander. Hermann Graf, 212 victories, survived, went to Soviet prison, with Hartmann released 1950. The ones who didn't: Josef Svernemann, 60 victories, killed in parachute. Lieutenant Kursk killed in action, exact victory count unknown. Ginter Capito, single-digit victories, killed in combat. The 12 pilots from Hartmann's original squadron, the 5 pilots who died the same day as Krupinski, the hundreds of young pilots with 20 hours training, the 1,300 prisoners who died at Kirov. The difference: not luck. 800 battles disprove luck, not aircraft. Everyone flew Mi-109s. Some had newer models, better engines. Didn't matter. Dead is dead, not enemy quality. The Soviets had excellent pilots by 1943 and 1945. Guards fighter regiments. Aces with 50, 60, 70 victories. Kizhatub, 62 victories. Pokryshkin, 59 victories. These men were dangerous, skilled, experienced, not better aircraft. Soviet Yak-3 could outturn the Mi-109. La-7 was faster. So did Mi-50, P-30 year Verpower. Hartmann faced superior aircraft regularly. Still survived. Still won. The difference was the system. See decide, attack, break. 4 steps, followed religiously. Step 1. See first. The pilot who sees first has half the victory. Everything flows from this. Visual lookout, methodical scanning, spotting enemies minutes before they spot you, setting up the perfect attack. Step 2. Decide carefully. Not every sighting equals attack. Evaluate 6 factors. Surprise, altitude, sun position, clouds, fuel, ammo numbers. If all factors favorable, attack. If even one unfavorable, coffee break. Wait, reposition. Be patient. Patience keeps you alive. Step 3. Attack decisively. Point blank range. 30 yards or less. Windscreen completely filled with target. 1 second burst. Devastating firepower. Minimal ammunition. Maximum effect. The enemy aircraft doesn't just get damaged, it disintegrates. Step 4. Break immediately. Never watch the kill. Never admire your work. Fire and break. Gone. 2 seconds maximum from trigger pull to complete separation. Never turn with the enemy. Never dogfight. Never deviate from the plan. The system worked. For Hartmann, 352 victories, 0 wounds. For those who followed the system, high survival rate. For those who didn't, death. But the system required discipline. Iron discipline. The discipline to see an enemy and not attack when conditions weren't perfect. The discipline to wait 20 minutes for the perfect shot. The discipline to break away immediately, even when you want to watch your kill go down. Most pilots didn't have that discipline. They saw an enemy and attacked immediately. Pure aggression. No patience. No calculation. Just kill, or be killed, instinct. Sometimes they got lucky. Sometimes they survived long enough to learn. Usually they died. Hartmann taught the system to every pilot assigned to his squadron. Some learned. Some survived. Some became aces themselves. Scored 10 victories, 20, 50. Some didn't learn. Couldn't learn. Died within days. The system could be taught. The discipline couldn't. Either you had it, or you didn't. Capito didn't have it. Gentle bomber pilot turn instead of hard fighter break. Dead. Zwerneman had it. 60 victories. But one mistake. Letting an enemy get behind him. And all the discipline in the world couldn't save him. The 12 pilots from Hartmann's original squadron didn't live long enough to learn the system. They died before they could internalize it. The 5 pilots who died the same day as Krupinski's son knew the system, followed it, died anyway. Because sometimes in a massive furball with 100 aircraft and no organization, the system breaks down. Chaos kills randomly. No amount of discipline saves you from chaos. But most of the time, the system worked. See Decide Attack Break saved Hartmann's life 800 times. Saved his students' lives hundreds of times. Killed thousands of Soviet aircraft. Won thousands of engagements. And brought him home alive when everyone around him died. Epilogue. While in Schönbuch, West Germany, 1982. Erich Hartmann sits in his study. 60 years old. Retired from the Luftwaffe. Living quietly. Doesn't talk much about the war. Doesn't do many interviews. A young reporter asks him, "What was your secret? How did you survive when so many others died?" Hartmann is quiet for a long moment, thinking, "Finally, I was disciplined. I followed my tactics exactly. Every mission. Every time. See Decide Attack Break. Never deviated. Not once. Was it difficult? Following the system even when every instinct told you to do something else? Very difficult. The hardest thing I ever did. Harder than any combat. Harder than the prison camps. Because in combat your instincts scream at you. Attack now. Turn with him. Press the attack, and you have to ignore those instincts. You have to trust the system even when it feels wrong. Did you ever break the system? Even once. Long pause. Hartmann stares out the window. Finally, once. Early in my career. Pressed an attack too long. Flew through debris. Damaged my aircraft. Crash landed. After that, never again. Rigid adherence to the system. No exceptions. What about luck? You must have been lucky. Of course I was lucky. 800 aerial battles? I was very lucky. But luck isn't random. You create your own luck. You see, first you position correctly, you attack when conditions are perfect. You break cleanly. You create situations where luck favors you. The pilots who died weren't unlucky. They were undisciplined. That seems harsh. It's true. Most of them died because they didn't follow basic tactical principles. They attacked when they shouldn't have. They dogfought when they should have broken away. They pressed attacks too long. They didn't see the enemy first. Lack of discipline killed them. Not bad luck. What about the young pilots? The ones with 20 hours training? They didn't have time to become disciplined. Hartmann's expression darkens. That was criminal. Sending boys with 20 hours into combat against experienced Soviet pilots in superior aircraft. Criminal. I told Hitler that. He agreed. But it was too late. The war was lost. No time to properly train them. So they died. Hundreds of them. Good boys. Eager. Brave. Dead within days. Do you feel guilty? Surviving when they died. Long silence. Hartmann doesn't answer immediately. When he finally speaks, his voice is quiet. Every day. Every single day for 37 years. I survived. They didn't. Why? Because I developed a system. Because I was disciplined. Because I was lucky. What makes my life worth more than theirs? But you tried to teach them. I tried. Some learned. Some survived. Most didn't live long enough to learn. Or couldn't learn fast enough. Or learned but made one mistake and died anyway. He pauses. Capito. My wingman. I taught him. Trained him. Told him. Brake hard. Horse the aircraft into a sharp turn. Don't fly like a bomber pilot. He understood. But when the moment came, instinct took over. Gentle turn. Dead. I couldn't save him. My system couldn't save him. Because discipline has to be instinct. Has to be automatic. And for him, it wasn't. What about the prison camps? Did you use a system there too? Different system. But yes. Maintain dignity. Maintain sanity. Maintain hope. Never confess. Never collaborate. No matter what they did to me. That was my system. Thousands of prisoners didn't have that discipline. They broke. Confessed. Collaborated. Some were released early because of it. But they went home, broken inside. I went home late, but I went home whole. And the prisoners who died at Kirov? The 1,300? Hartmann looks away. I survived because of rank. Because I was transferred before the worst deaths. Not because of discipline. Not because of a system. Just timing. Luck. If Eid stayed at Kirov another month, I would have died with them. Starved to death digging peat in a frozen swamp. So, sometimes it is just luck. Sometimes. Yes. Sometimes discipline isn't enough. Sometimes. The system isn't enough. Sometimes. The system isn't enough. Sometimes. You survive because of factors beyond your control. Rank. Timing. Random chance. He turns back to the reporter. But in combat? In the air? The system worked. Rigid observance of the tactical sequence saved my life 800 times. That wasn't luck. That was discipline. Would the system work today? Modern air combat. The technology changes. The aircraft change. The weapons change. But the principles don't change. See first. Decide carefully. Attack decisively. Break cleanly. Those principles are eternal. A pilot who follows them will survive. A pilot who doesn't will die. Any final thoughts? Anything you want people to know? Hartmann thinks for a long moment. The war was terrible. The killing was terrible. Into Tier Lager. Am not proud of killing hundreds of men. Am proud of surviving. Am proud of helping some of my pilots survive. Am proud of developing a system that worked. He pauses. But I wish none of it had been necessary. I wish those boys with 20 hours training had stayed home. I wish Sverneman hadn't been shot in his parachute. I wish Capito had broken harder. I wish the 1,300 at Kirov had lived. Another pause. I survived. They didn't. The system worked for me. But I wish it could have saved them too. The equation. In the end, the mathematics of Erich Hartmann's survival reduced to a simple formula. Disciplined system, patience, some luck. 352, victories, and coming home alive. Remove any element, and the equation fails. Remove discipline. You attack when you shouldn't. You dogfight when you should break. You die. Remove the system. You have no framework for decisions. You react instead of acting. You die. Remove patience. You attack before conditions are perfect. You waste opportunities. You take unnecessary risks. You die. Remove luck. You do everything right and fly through debris anyway, or get bounced by a better pilot, or suffer mechanical failure. You die. All four elements must be present. All the time. Every mission. Every engagement. For 800 aerial battles, Hartmann maintained all four elements. For 352 victories, the equation held. When the war ended, He was alive, untouched, unscratched, never wounded, while the ghosts filled the empty spaces on the flight line. 12 from his original squadron, 5 from one day, Capito, Zverneman, Kursk, and hundreds more whose names history didn't record. Young pilots with 20 hours, eager faces, dead within days. They didn't lack courage. They didn't lack skill. Most of them didn't even lack discipline. They lacked time. Time to learn the system. Time to internalize the discipline. Time was the one resource they didn't have. Hartmann had time because the system gave him time. Because he survived long enough to perfect the system. Because the system kept him alive long enough to teach others. Because discipline created opportunities for luck. A perfect circle. Self-reinforcing. The system keeps you alive. Being alive lets you refine the system. The refined system keeps you alive longer. Break the circle at any point and you die. Maintain the circle and you survive. 352 times Hartmann maintained the circle. 352 Soviet pilots did not. The mathematics are cold, brutal, unforgiving, but true. Good tactics, discipline, patience, some luck, survival. Missing any element, death. This was the lesson written in blood across the Eastern Front. This was the truth that filled the empty spaces on the flight line. This was the equation that separated the ace who survived from the squadron that died.